Mangwana ni Mwalelepo Vukenjani Kleklas Manave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show, bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashrim Mbedi. And as you know, Africa Good Morning delivers the latest news shaping the continent. On today's show, from debates on US aid's decline to Rwanda's $63 million demand from the UK, Tunisia's political trials, and Gabon's junta leader running for president, we uncover Africa's challenges and opportunities. Plus, Rorisang Mohojwe brings us the Botswana report highlighting the country's emerging hemp industry, amongst other stories. Do catch Africa Good Morning on DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com, as well as Network Media Hub on YouTube. Stay with us as we get into the top stories shortly. Former U.S. President Donald Trump's aggressive dismantling of U.S. aid, once the world's largest donor organization, has sent shockwaves through the global aid sector, leaving humanitarian workers scrambling to salvage international development efforts. The move, coupled with aid cuts by other nations like the U.K., has intensified debates about the true nature of Western humanitarianism. While some mourn the loss of aid programs, others argue that this crisis simply exposes what has long been evident, that development aid has often been more about geopolitical control and sustaining global inequality than a genuine humanitarianism. A statement by Interaction, initially acknowledging that aid serves U.S. interests, further fueled this debate, with Global North workers dismissing it as poor wording, while many in the Global South saw it as a long overdue admission. This reckoning sheds light on the deep-rooted colonial legacy of Western humanitarianism, which has historically positioned aid as a means of maintaining influence rather than just fostering true global equity. Rwanda is asking Britain for a £50 million payment over a cancelled asylum deal, a source close to the government in Kigali said yesterday, after London paused some bilateral aid to the African country over the war in Congo. On taking office last July, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer scrapped the prior Conservative government's asylum plan, under which Rwanda would have been paid to take in migrants who had illegally arrived in Britain. Incoming Interior Minister Yvette Cooper said that month the plan had already cost UK taxpayers £700 million. A British government spokesperson said in an emailed statement, Cooper had been clear that the Rwanda Asylum Partnership had wasted taxpayer money and should not continue. As stated clearly in notes verbal between the UK and Rwanda, no further payments in relation to this policy will be made, and Rwanda has waived any additional payments, the spokesperson said. A source close to the Rwandan government told Reuters that Kigali was asking for £50 million over the cancelled agreement. Yolande Makolo, Rwanda's government spokesperson, said the demand was driven by Britain's stance towards Kigali, including what she described as inflammatory comments by Britain's Minister for Africa. The UK had asked Rwanda to quietly forego the payment based on the trust and good faith existing between our two nations, Makolo said in a post on X. However, the UK has breached this trust through the unjustified punitive measures to coerce Rwanda into compromising our national security, she added. Moving on to our next story. Tunisian activists protested yesterday near a Tunis court where prominent figures face charges of conspiring against state security in a trial that the opposition says is fabricated and a symbol of President Kais Saied's authoritarian rule. Rights groups say the trial highlights Saied's full control over the judiciary since he dissolved the elected parliament in 2021 and began ruling by decree before later dissolving the independent Supreme Judicial Council. 40 people, including high-profile politicians, businessmen, and journalists, are being prosecuted in the case. More than 20 have fled abroad. Some politicians were arrested in 2023 in a crackdown on opposition ranks, including Gazi Chawashi, Isam Chebi Jawaha Ben Mbraka, Abdel Mahmid Jalasi Kayam Turkey. Now, the former presidential chief of staff Nadia Akacha and former head of intelligence Kamel Guizani are among the accused. They live abroad. We are facing the biggest judicial scandals. It is one of the darkest injustices in Tunisia's history, Bassam Trifi, the head of the Tunisian Human Rights League, said. Said in 2023 these politicians were traitors and terrorists, and that the judges who acquitted them were their accomplices. The opposition leaders arrested in the case accused Said of staging a coup in 2021 and say the case is fabricated to stifle the opposition and establish a one-man repressive rule. They say they were preparing an initiative aimed at uniting the fragmented opposition to face the democratic setback in the cradle of the Arab Spring uprisings. Chaima Issa, a senior official in the Salvation Front, the main opposition coalition, is among 8 people appearing before the judge, while they are free in the trial's first session. Gabon's military leader, General Brice Oligui Nguema, has announced his intention to run for president in next month's election. Nguema seized power in 2023 in a coup that ended the long-standing rule of the Bongo family. He then pledged to hand over power to civilians. The country has, however, since passed a new constitution and electoral code that critics argue were designed to favor a bid for the presidency by the junta leader. Nguema told the Gabonese people that he had decided to run in the 12th April election after careful reflection and in response to their many appeals. Addressing supporters during a heavy downpour in the capital, Libreville, he declared his readiness to change the fortunes of the oil-rich country. I am a builder and I need your courage, your strength to build this country, the coup leader, who had just turned 50, said. Now, the announcement followed months of speculation about his intentions to officially occupy the country's top seat. This weekend, Nguema told the military in a meeting that he was aware of their desire to see him run in the election and urged them to vote. He told the defense forces he had heard their calls. I listened to you and believe me, I understand you, adding, I will get back to you within the next few days. There has been speculation that Nguema had left the army as a requirement to run for the presidency, but that has since been denied by his spokesperson. A Facebook page associated with Nguema clarified on Monday that he was required to abandon his military uniform temporarily while running for election. The Nguema-led junta is credited for ending 55 years of the Bongo dynasty. Ali Bongo had ruled for 14 years before he was toppled. He took office after the death of his father, Omar Bongo, who had been president for 41 years. Despite Gabon's oil wealth and vast forests, 1/3 of its 2.4 million people live below the poverty line, and this is according to the UN. You're still with Africa Good Morning. Shortly, we're going to be talking to Rorisang Mohojwe as she brings us the news stories from Botswana. All right, it's time for us to chat with Rorisang Mohojwe as she brings us the news stories from Botswana. Good morning, Rorisang. Welcome to the show.
Africa, good morning. Thank you very much for having me, Ashwin. It's always a pleasure to be here with you all on Africa Good Morning.
We seem to be having an issue there with the connectivity with Rorisang Mohojwe. We're going to try to get into her first story and see if she'll be able to respond by then. Rorisang, Botswana is attracting investor interest in its emerging medicinal hemp industry as the government seeks to diversify its diamond-dependent economy following a recent conference. Inquiries have surged. Could you tell us more?
Yes, Ashwin, if you may recall, last year, November, President Duma Boko, during his his very first State of the Nation address, did mention the fact that Botswana will be looking into the cultivation and the production of hemp for industrial and medicinal purposes. Now, the whole point of this is to diversify the economy and lead it away from diamonds. Diamonds are the mainstay, they are the main contributors of GDP, the GDP of the country. And for many years now, industry experts, including the government and the private sector, have been singing the song that Botswana is too heavily reliant on diamonds. Therefore, there needs to be economic diversification. And one of the plans of the government to diversify is to tap into the $400 billion hemp industry. And now, as Botswana transitions into this industry, investors are now showing a growing interest, and they want to come to the country to invest in this new venture that the government is venturing into. And we did speak to the organizers of the Medicinal Cannabis and Industrial Hemp Conference, which was held this past month right here in Gaborone, and they did tell us that there has been a surge in investor inquiries. Now, investors from across the world, particularly from the US, especially international players, they are looking to set up in Botswana. They're looking to set up operations in Botswana, and this represents the potential to boost economic growth, as well as create jobs and generate significant revenue, really, and as well as positioning Botswana as a key player in this cannabis market. And because of this very new industry that Botswana is looking to tap into, people are they are finding a way into getting involved in the what's the word that I'm looking for, to get involved in the value chain of the hemp industry. And they are now holding summits. We have another one that is coming up next month in April, and it's going to bring together stakeholders who are going to explore industrial hemp industry as well as this value chain. They're trying to attract as well as local stakeholders who might be interested in the market. And the summit, we understand, is going to attract around 300 delegates from across the world, especially from the US. Not only international investors, but also representatives from government who are responsible for policy making, as well as farmers associations and just the local general public, just so they can see exactly where in this value chain they can fall into. And these summits are now bringing together all of these experts and stakeholders to discuss the necessary policy reforms for the sustainable development of the hemp industry.
Very interesting, because as you know, Malawi, Zimbabwe and South Africa are already progressing quite steadily in the hemp industry. It's going to be interesting to see how Botswana handles that. Now, sadly, rising crocodile attacks in Botswana pose a serious threat to rural communities, prompting Okavango Wilderness Safaris and OCMP to launch an educational awareness campaign. Their initiative includes distributing posters in high-risk areas to help prevent attacks and promote safer coexistence.
Botswana is grappling with a growing threat of crocodile attacks, which experts say endangers who rely on rivers and lagoons for their daily activities and for sustenance as well. Every year there are multiple fatalities as well as significant livestock losses that are recorded, and this really just highlights the urgent need for our Okavango crocodile related incidents. Now, this initiative, we understand, seeks to equip communities with crucial knowledge to prevent attacks, to prevent such attacks, as well as to ensure a safer coexistence between the crocodiles, these formidable predators, as well as the human beings and the livestock that they rear. And a key component of this initiative really is to spread awareness through the distribution of awareness posters, crocodile awareness posters, which we are informed will be displayed really in the villages, the schools, the tourism centers, the tourism camps, and they will be distributed to some government government institutions as well, so that they can help distribute these materials, because statistics do show that crocodile attacks peak during the warmer months, around this time, really from from November up until February, March. This is the peak season, and that is why these organizations have launched this educational initiative, really to spread awareness when these I don't know why I call them formidable, but when these predators are most active. And because we all know that their ability to ambush prey is really often, sometimes, not often, underestimated, and therefore safety measures are critical in this instance.
All right, Rory Sang, it's time for us to get into the sports in Botswana. Minister of Sports and Arts Jacob Kalabang has called for an investigation into the 2027 AFCON bid process to ensure transparency and accountability in government expenditures. While he acknowledges the legitimacy of the bid, he stresses the need for a thorough financial review. Tell us more.
Speaking of football, the Minister of Arts and the Minister of Sports and Arts, Honorable Jacob Kalabang, has called for an investigation into the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations bid process that took place just recently. As we know, that Botswana did put up its hand to host the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations, and it was undertaken. This bid was undertaken in the previous administration under the previous government, and and now the new government is saying that there needs to be investigations. And this is not only a call to action made by the minister, but several members of parliament as well have been discussing. They've added their voice onto this call to action, call for investigations. They've spoken about it in parliament quite a lot, and they've added their voice saying, yes, they do acknowledge the legitimacy of this bid. However, they feel like there is a need for transparency and accountability, because there are allegations that there really was no real financial plan as to how the country was going to finance this incredible thing, which was to host the AFCON Cup, really the African Cup of Nations tournament, which is a highly prestigious one, as we know, on the continent. And they did mention that it will cost, the reported cost include activities leading to the bid, which went over 116,000 pula. There was also a facilities audit, which was about 1.1 million pula, as well as activities after the bid, which cost 1.8 million pula, and external travel, which cost 1.6 million pula. Now, the Minister of Sports highlights that these are quite exorbitant features. These are quite exorbitant costs. And therefore, there needs to be significant investigations into this, just to determine exactly how the money would have been spent, or how some of the money has already been spent. Because right now, the country is grappling with an economic crisis. There is no money in the national coffers, and everything is being scrutinized at this point. And the minister did really underscore that there needs to be responsible financial management in future bids. They're not saying that there won't be any more bids. They're saying in future bids there needs to be responsible financial management. And this is just basically to ensure that public funds are used efficiently in major sporting projects, because the new government does have major plans in order to develop the sporting industry in the country. And there needs to be that financial prudence, as well as financial management of national coffers, of public funds, really. So now many politicians, many lawmakers are really agreeing that there really needs to be an investigation into this bid. And I believe that they will be calling the former Minister of Sport to come and really explain exactly what happened or what transpired during this time.
implementation program, positioning Botswana to become the first COSAFA nation to adopt the technology.
This is one of the latest developments in the sporting fraternity, in the football fraternity, really. Botswana, the Botswana Football Association, or the BFA, has announced that it has taken a major step towards introducing the video assistant referee, or VAR technology, with the official kickoff meeting of the VAR implementation assistance and accreditation program that was recently held in the city of Gaborone. And many sports fanatics are calling it a historic milestone, because Botswana could become the first country in the COSAFA region to implement this technology. Now, as part of this implementation process, COSAFA will conduct intensive VAR training sessions in the coming month of April, where referees are expected to undergo a minimum of 25 hours of training. This training is expected to not only prepare them for domestic competitions using this technology, but it will also open doors for the country's referees to officiate in international matches. That is why many of the football stakeholders are quite excited about this. And the Botswana Football Association's president, Wabile Babizane, did highlight the significance of this development, saying that the VAR will definitely enhance the integrity as well as the professionalism of the local football fraternity, or rather the Botswana football scene.
And finally, the Miss Botswana 2025 Grand Finale themed African Regal will take place on March 22 in Gaborone.
The highly anticipated and coveted Miss Botswana crown, Miss Botswana 2025 Grand Finale, is set for later on this month, on the 22nd of March in Gaborone. The theme has been released. Everybody's excited about it. It will be African Regal. Now, organizers say this theme, aims to celebrate the African heritage, the elegance, the empowerment, as well as the culture, while also being able to honor, the elegance and the glamour, as well as the celebration of the contestants, of modern principles, really, while highlighting the intelligence and the beauty and the leadership, really, of Botswana's most youngest, brightest, as well as most beautiful young women in the country. They do note that this year's pageant just really aims to embrace modern ideals while honoring tradition. Now, this year's edition, 2025 edition, promises a night of glitz and glamour. It's going to be one big celebration, with contestants expected to embody or carry the strength and the grace of that theme, the very same theme, African Regal. Now, the winner will go on to represent the country on the international stage. Miss World. She's expected to carry the nation's pride and aspirations.
DSTV 285, GoTV 25, OneUp2.com, and Network Media Hub on YouTube is precisely where you can find us. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Swera Shahanaka.